Hi everyone. How is everyone doing today? So, as always, please let me know if you can hear me, see me, if the video and the audio are coming through okay. We are streaming on a few platforms. Okay, seems that everything is in order, which is always good. Just give it a few seconds to make sure that everything is coming through okay. If you can hear me and see me, please let me know in the comments. And okay. So, hello and welcome everybody joining me today. We are, as I said, streaming on multiple platforms. And I've got another screen next to me here where I could see just any questions or any comments I receive throughout the event today. And I can't believe it, but this is my 11th live. So I've been trying to be consistent and trying to, um, be live every Thursday evening. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even sure if this is the right time going forward. So, what do you think? Tell me in the comments. Do you want me to make it earlier or later? Um, Later is probably not ideal for me because there's usually a Man United game that I'll be one of watching, but maybe it's a good thing not to watch any football games these days. But anyway, please let me know about the suggestions, any suggestions you might have. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'd like this session to be as interactive as possible. So if the audio and the video are coming through to you okay, please comment or give me the thumbs up. And we'll give it a few seconds for people to join us. And as always, welcome to my live. Today we're going to be talking about a topic or a subject that a lot of people actually chose on the poll that I've got on my page. And I think 45 or 44% of the people voted for it out of a few hundred people. So that means that at least 100 people voted for that, I think. And today we're going to be talking about project management skills for engineers and how they actually help us in our careers as engineers. And how do we approach learning these skills? I'm really excited about sharing this with you today. Sharing what I know, of course, about this. And as always, if you're new to this, hi and welcome. My name is Mohammed. I work as a director of design for a company called Aureus. In the UK, we specialize in substations and grid connections and battery energy storage system projects. So, projects in the energy construction industries. And I have 17 years of experience working in substation design, high voltage substation design, and protection and control substation automation as a lead engineer and also as a engineering manager. And my experience is in substations, and I'm passionate about what we do. And I found it a very, very interesting career choice. And never a dull moment. And I always like to share about my week and how it is going so far. And this week we've had, at work, we have been very, very busy. We're recruiting again, our design team in energy is growing again, which is very good. We're winning work, and we have a lot of good things going on, which is good. So we've been very busy this week, and today we had very few interest or very interesting meetings as well. Especially on battery energy storage projects. This is a very interesting space in the UK over the next 5 to 10 years. So I really encourage anyone in this industry, especially electrical engineers, to explore opportunities in the BESS or the battery energy storage system projects, because they seem to be very, very or in high demand. And, there's a lot of good signs and positive signs over growth in this sector over the next 5 to 10 years. Anyway, so how about you and your day? Tell me how has it been going for you? Please let me know. Please share in the comments. I've always found it or very enjoyable to listen from interesting people and to talk to interesting people working on interesting things. So please let me know in the comments. And as always, we want to explain, why do we do this? So, going on this live is really to share the knowledge. And I think, more people should be doing this. I really encourage anybody who has got, any knowledge to just share it, because we need to spread the knowledge. We need to make it easier for people to gain more knowledge and to share the knowledge and spread it. And we need to learn from each other. I can see some comments, which is good. And I also want to connect with engineers, and it's my number one source of, personal growth at the moment. I think that this is helping me grow more than anything else, to learn what is happening out there, what people are going through, the questions they might have, and how they're developing as individuals, and how are we developing as an industry collectively, or collectively as an industry. And I want to push myself and learn from you as well. And of course, public speaking and going live, that's a skill that needs regular practice. So I'm also trying to push myself in that manner. And if you're joining me live, please give me the thumbs up so I can tell you about the secret project I am working on, currently working on for my newsletter readers. So to give you a bit of background, or to update you on where I am with this LinkedIn gig, I started writing and publishing daily on LinkedIn for almost nearly now, approaching 2 years. And apparently my posts reached over 510,000 people over the last 12 months alone. I think it was something like 2.5 million impressions or something like that. And I learn something new every week about this platform and about, the way people interact and engage on it. And it has created a lot of opportunities for me. But the one I'm interested in the most, or the most interesting opportunity for me, would be connecting with other interesting people and engineers. And as always, if you want to access my content, and everything is free out there, it's on Substack. You can see all my videos, all my articles, and my next secret project, which I'll be announcing over there, is basically a training course. But I want it to be different. I want it to be engaging and really different to any other training course out there. I feel that there is a lot that people could do, and there's a lot that people could learn from what I know from others. So I welcome your opinions. If you do, please feel free to send me your opinion, your suggestions. If there's something in particular that you're looking to learn or develop as a skill, or something you're struggling with as an engineer or as an engineering manager, just please share and let me know. If you do, I'll give you, first free access to it once it's released, which is going to be over the next few weeks. And to go back to now today's topic, we're going to be talking about project management skills for engineers. And I'm really excited about this because it is a very, very interesting topic. And as a matter of fact, a few years ago, I actually was convinced that I will end up in project management. That's just, how I felt um, throughout my career, excuse me. And the good thing about these skills is that they are easy to learn and apply if you are aware of them and if you approach them in the right manner. And they make such a big difference, to our careers, and especially as engineers working on projects. And most likely than not, you're going to be an engineer working on a project. If you are following me, or if you have been engaging with my content, then you're probably an engineer and you're probably working on a project. These skills, they need a bit more effort, but not that much more. And we will attempt to shed more light on them and on their importance. Why do many engineers miss opportunities when it comes to these skills, and what stops them from developing these skills? How to learn these skills, how to apply them day to day, and how to benefit from applying those skills in your career. And this is for everybody who is in an engineering profession, but especially the following, groups or people. Number one, engineers who want to become leaders or lead engineers. And those would be, they could be people or engineers who are actually in a technical specialty. So they're working in design and commissioning, they're working in any other, field. Sorry, I got distracted a bit with the comments here, but yeah, they could be site engineers, they could be design engineers. So any type of engineer or any profession in engineering. And usually those are people who want to be engineering managers or lead engineers or design managers or site managers, etc. And they don't know where to start. Well, that is a good starting point. That's one of many starting points you could start on or start from, which is acquiring those project management skills. And they're very simple skills to start with. And the benefits can be quite rapid. They can be very, very quick to acquire, to apply, and to see results. And there's nothing wrong with ambition. We all want to become lead engineers or chief engineers for different reasons. So it's really mostly about having a starting point, and that's a good starting point in my opinion. The other type of engineers could be engineers who already know they want to become project managers. And as I told you, for many years in my career, I felt like I was going to be a project manager and I wanted to be a project manager. And I went and, got involved with project management and worked on several tasks or activities within project management and volunteered for things in project management and eventually got my project management certificate. But, always found something different to do, which took me away from that path. So, that's sometimes what happens in your career. I have no complaints, but reflecting upon it now or today, I feel that I've actually learned a lot from that certification, from my exposure to project management skills and activities. And sometimes engineers might not know again where to start, so that will be a good starting point. It can give a lot of faster results, and it can be the foundation for an engineer who wants to start developing towards becoming a project manager or getting into project management. Another group that is very close to my heart, which is fresh graduates and entry level engineers, those with 0 to perhaps 3 or 5 years of experience. I would say, well, 5 years is no longer entry level, but let's say 0 to 3 years of experience. And again, they might not necessarily want to become project managers, but it is still a very, very good knowledge base to acquire and and a skill set to hone and learn. So again, the benefits here are very, very varied and diverse for entry level engineers, and they are good against starting points. So similar themes when it comes to the people who would be interested in today's session, and particularly in learning about project management skills and their applications in the engineering profession. But let's not forget, those who are already in leadership positions as engineers, again, they could always benefit from revisiting and relearning, if you like, these skills. And this is something that I do, and we should be doing more and more of. You don't reach a certain level and think that you are now stopping in terms of learning. No, on the contrary, I think you should, you know, um, nurture your curiosity and continue learning and continue revisiting these small skills and find out, what developments have been, or maybe what kind of lessons learned are out there for you to benefit from and to develop further. So this is very important, even if you are already in an engineering management or engineer or design management or lead engineering or chief engineer position. So again, all these skills are important to keep, sharpened and to try and learn more on in whatever stage it may be in your career. And the last, set of engineers or type of engineers that would be interested in something like today is frankly, any engineer looking to build a strong personal brand, because with these skills, you get more done, you get more done on time, you become more and more successful, and you just build your reputation and your personal brand. And this is where you know your reputation and your personal brand are just a result of these little actions that you take deliberately and with agency over time, and they build up, and they are quite effective when they build up and are done consistently and over a long term. So before we go into the skills, we need to first set the scene and understand what's happening in the modern workplace, in our projects today. And this is not something new, and it's not a secret, and I don't think it's in any particular organization. So whatever I'm saying today is not something from the current workplace or the previous workplaces, but there are trends and observations across the whole industry. So let's approach these challenges and try and understand about them. And the first one would be, sometimes there is a lack of adequate resources. So projects are very challenging, and there aren't probably enough resources either in the industry or on a project level or on an organization level. So that is a very, very big and common challenge across many projects, especially the big projects. There are always going to be challenges with resources, and that's one of the things that we need to learn as engineers. So why are there challenges with resources? It could be personnel, it could be industry, or geographically, or it could be timing and industry related, or it could be the organization itself and how projects are set up in a certain organization. So nothing is a smooth sail, if you like, unless it's prepared for properly and it's planned for, and the resources are managed effectively. And the second challenge would be, as we said, planning. So sometimes planning is poor. And again, does that mean we're not prepared? It could be, but sometimes, there isn't the right plan in place. It can happen with challenging, again, projects, or, the caliber of the resources, and, the adequacy of, again, resourcing levels. And it could be also timing of the project. It could be, the external constraints on the project. It could be, again, industry related. So a lot of these, reasons or factors um, affect the planning. And if the planning is not ideal or is not done to the right level, then it can be uh, a challenge, a considerable and significant challenge to the project. And a lot of projects are actually um, very, very challenging when it comes to their plans. That's just, a fact, in especially in infrastructure projects, especially in big projects, because they're not easy, and they are usually complex, and they involve uh, multi-disciplines. They involve large teams. They involve a lot of people. They involve complex processes, and tools, and a lot of things to be done. So that's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. And another challenge would be, communications. And again, we engineers, I feel that we're not the best at communicating. Most of us, or many of us, are interested in a level of detail, and we kind of like are in this job to solve problems and build things and test things and draw and design things. So, communications might not be our strong suit to begin with, or, naturally. And that's okay. It doesn't have to come naturally to everybody. Some of us need to work on it more than others. So, again, rushed communications can be a challenge, lack of communications can be a challenge. So, these are all important things that, or important aspects that engineers need to pay attention to. Obstacles, in terms of the poor communication or rushed communications, can be, again, personnel, as I said, the nature of the engineering role and job. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just the nature of it. It could be organizational. It could be where, again, how the projects are set up. It could be how the organization is set up. There are many, many different challenges across different organizations. When you read about, the lessons learned and the experiences out there. And again, it could be timing and industry related. So, with communications, there is a lot of challenges when it comes to the level of detail, pitching the right message, or at the right, let's say, um, bandwidth, or, frequency, when it comes to communicating with different levels of the organization, with clients, with suppliers, with external or internal stakeholders. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to communications. And our aim as well today is to try and simplify that, and try to find an effective and simple way to get started when it comes to communications, and how to effectively communicate in order to achieve your, objectives on the project. Another challenge I've been thinking about a lot, which is waste. We have, um, after the pandemic, I think the amount of meetings have just risen more. And I feel that, we, or people, don't prepare enough for meetings, which means that sometimes a lot of the meetings can be ineffective. And again, these are all symptoms of the modern, you know, day work and workplace. This is just common across the board. It's everywhere. So be aware of waste, and try and, be conscious of it, and know where, your time can be wasted, where your efforts can be wasted, where, money can be wasted. Okay, so, or maybe wasted. So be aware of those and be conscious of those areas and your actions contributing to such wasteful activities. Okay, so be aware of those. Try to always think of the improvement that you could bring to, you know, the level you're operating at, and also to the organization you're working in, because that improvement can drive more and more benefits to you, to your team, to the industry. So it's something that you don't want to be missing on. And again, we talk a lot about reputation and personal brand, and this is something that can actually contribute to that more than a lot of other things. And another symptom or challenge is poor scope definition, especially with now, you know, in the projects that we have in the energy industries, you know, where developers that are not necessarily, you know, equipped fully from an engineering perspective uh, get into the, you know, investments and get into the projects. And again, you know, it is very common. You could find something that is not fully articulated in terms of scope definition. And our job as engineers is to also not just deliver the job, but make sure that from an early stage, that the scope is defined, and um, um, that the scope is properly defined, is properly you know, documented, and is well articulated, so that you can manage the expectations. Okay, right. So let's take a short break and see what comments and questions we have. Uh, let's see, where is this chat? Okay. Um, if you have any questions, please write them in the comments. And if you're following and, you know, you find the pace to be okay, just give me the thumbs up. If not, please comment. Tell me if there is anything you need me to go over, or again, or repeat, or, you know, explain further, or mention more examples on. So please interact with me in the comments. Okay, the first question is, can a fresh engineer also become a project engineer? Yeah, a project engineer is a role. It doesn't necessarily reflect the level of, you know, seniority or experience. So you could be uh, a fresh graduate who works in a project engineering role. There's nothing wrong with that. And actually, a project engineer means a lot of things, but in the concept of construction projects, usually a project engineer is somebody who will manage a package or a sub package, or will interface with the design from a project management and a construction and a site point of view. So it could mean different things, really. But this is my view of a project engineer. A project engineer, and I was a project engineer for some time. So a project engineer would be somebody who would interface and coordinate designs, suppliers, different, you know, smaller packages in the grand scheme of things in the project. But that's the project engineer role. Yes, PMP not related to technical points. Actually, the PMP stands for the Project Management Professional Certificate, and it is a good certificate, and I actually recommend it if you could afford it, and if you have the time and the bandwidth to spend, you know, your effort and your time and your money to learn about project management skills and gain the Project Management Professional Certificate. Even as an engineer, I would really, really recommend it. I have a story with the PMP. I did it, you know, part time. So I was working, and I probably did the certificate over. I don't know if anybody could tell me how long it took them to get that certificate, but I remember it took me a year to study, and it took me a whole year to study, where I did it every Saturday. I spent 2 hours every Saturday morning, or 2 to 4 hours every Saturday morning. So it was a holiday, and I had to go drop my daughter to like Saturday school basically. So I had some time on my hands Saturday mornings. So I used to sit down every Saturday morning, 2 to 4 hours, drink coffee and study for the PMP. And then, and of course, I worked in the past with ABB as a technical project manager, as a project engineer, as a lead engineer. So I did some of these project management tasks and activities. And I always thought I would become a project manager eventually, but I haven't. But basically, back to the PMP story is that I did it over a year, so it was a very long time. And I actually got a very high grade, apparently, when I sat the test. So I'm not boasting, but I got, um, I think it was called distinct or something like that in the knowledge in the different areas. So there's 5 areas, the initiating, the planning, the controlling, monitoring, and closing. So yeah, I was pleased and very happy and very proud of that. And I think the biggest benefit I got it. I'm not sure if it has, you know, had a direct positive impact on the opportunities that I'm getting. Maybe I can't tell, but what I can tell you is that it's had a very very positive impact on my methods of thinking. So when I'm approaching something, I really like methodological, sequences and putting things, trying to make sense of things that perhaps could not or do not make sense on their own. And I think the project management book of knowledge and the project management professional, certificate, they make sense of a lot of things that are really interesting. I found it very, very interesting. I mean, I really like the project management science or the science of project management. I find it very interesting, and I find it very, very fascinating. I'll be honest, because putting things on paper, I like to write things, I like to list things, I like to think through things. So, you know, short answer, I recommend it. Okay. And it is still very, very valid. And it does give people more opportunities. And there are jobs that will require, PMP as a prerequisite or equivalent. Of course, there are others available. Okay. I'm a site engineer. Where's the question? If you can, please. Okay. Please tell me about site engineer. What do you want to know about site engineer? So when I started on site. It was an internship, so I wasn't graduate. I haven't graduated yet. But what I did is I was on site for a few months, and I helped with testing and commissioning. I helped with other activities. I remember having the engineer from, he was an engineer, a transformers engineer from South Korea, and he just basically took me through each and every part on a 502 MVA auto transformer, which is 380 kV by 110 by 13.8 kV, tertiary, of course, at the time. And I remember that very well. He took me through everything. He showed me the buckles and the, the pressure relief devices and all these sorts of things, And later on in my career, of course, I've always worked closely with site engineers. And the good site engineers are the troubleshooters, are the problem solvers. So first of all, I always say it, and it's not a secret, but if you are considering if you start as a site engineer, then that could be one of the best starts you could ever have as an engineer in the energy or in substation construction anyway. I think that it's very, very, it's a very interesting job. No 2 days are similar, so I think every site has its own personality or intricacies or nuances, and speciality. And every location has got its own story and every design. And so there is a lot of things to be done as a site engineer. And there's a lot to learn. You are actually seeing the actual equipment and the site develop and being built over time. Nothing's like that. Nothing beats that. So it's a very very good start. Uh, Maybe the only challenge with it is that every project is a different location. Well, at least in substations. So yeah, that can be the challenge. So in terms of like traveling around, but if you are the person who enjoys that or wants that or doesn't mind that kind of lifestyle, then that job is very very satisfying and is very um, fulfilling as well. And they get paid very well. I think before people. Um, okay, I can see a lot more comments and questions. Just let me know. I'll take another question, but let me know. Do you want me to carry on with answering the questions, or do you want me to go back to the subject? Because we've got less than a half an hour to go before I have to go. Um, what are the key skills one should train on to become a project manager? Okay, so it's a good question. As I told you, I'm not a project manager. I like project management skills. I think there is use for project management skills in everything we do on projects, whether you're a project manager or not, whether you're involved with project management or not. But what I think the key skills are, you can search for the PMP, and you'll find the 10 knowledge areas across the 5 or 6 stages. And look, there is a lot of skills to learn. But for me, I think project management as a science, it applies to the project regardless of its nature. Now, people might disagree, and I know, of course, 100%, if you are a project manager of a relevant background in what you work or in what you project manage, then you're going to have an edge, of course, no doubt about it. But what I think, what I understand, and what I know is that, let's say, a software project manager can actually, theoretically, I think, can manage a construction project. Okay, maybe they will need to learn, of course, and pick up some, industry related specifics and skills. I agree, but in terms of project management science, it's all the same, and that's the beauty of it. So the key skills that you should train on as a project manager, I would say technical background gives you an edge, of course, 100%. But I can tell you that the best project managers I've worked with and the most successful are the most organized, the most resilient, and the better communicators. Okay, so if you want to become a good project manager, you need to focus on all the areas of project management, all the different skills, but most importantly, you need to be well organized, well documented. You need to communicate very well. You need to be resilient and adaptable. So because change is inevitable. So you know um, you need to have a very very strong sense of budget ownership and management of resources, whether they are human resources or other types of resources. So again, there are a lot of skills that you could train on. But my advice to you: start with the Project Management Institute. You could go to PMI. It's pmi.org, and just start on that route. There's a lot to learn. What is the difference between project engineer and site engineer? Well, a project engineer can be on site, and technically, a site engineer is somebody who's really, really, um, associated or concerned with site activities. Perhaps a project engineer is somebody who works across packages, whether they're on site in manufacturing. So a project engineer, for instance, would want to or would be required in most cases to make sure that the FAT of the equipment have been carried out in the right way, on time, as per the schedule, etc., etc., involving the right people, yeah, signed off correctly. But a site engineer would be, on the other hand, concerned when things arrive on site, when things, start on site, when things are happening on site. And, in contrast to that first example, they would be responsible or involved with the site acceptance test, with the commissioning, etc. So, the clues in the name, really. But they're very, very, correlated. So there's not much or massive difference in substation projects. Okay, so let's go back to the topic of today, and please keep the questions coming. I'll get back to the questions. And I just want to go quickly now over the problems of lacking project management skills. And the first one would be the ability, or, not being able to plan properly. Okay. And sorry, excuse me. And, you know, you need the right project management skills to plan properly. Otherwise, you will face a lot of obstacles and you will not, be efficient in planning. And we'll cover today very, very lightly and quickly over planning. But this is an important, aspect. Planning is a very big part of project management. And the other thing as well is not being able to manage the resources, and not able to utilize the allocated or the resources that you have in order to deliver the project or the task that you're working on as part of a bigger project, can make you fall behind. And it's not something, or it's not ideal for you. And it's a leadership trait to be able to manage resources and manage scope and change. And that's another thing. Without the right project management skills or knowledge, your management and your you being unconscious of the scope, and that's a big problem. You need to be aware of the scope. You need to understand the scope and try to contain and have a contained view of what scope you are responsible for or of, and how change might affect that. And another area for engineers to be aware of, or to be careful of, to be conscious of, is managing interfaces with others. And again, we could talk about this, in a separate discussion. But I believe that managing interfaces is what separates a great engineer from, a good engineer, let's say. So, of course, both would know their stuff, would know their technical specialties, would, be, very good or experts at what they do. But managing those external interfaces makes a big difference, because usually an engineer is not working in a vacuum. They are working as part of a system, and they interface and interact and engage with others. They collaborate with others. They cooperate with others. So at the end of the day, managing interfaces is a very important part of design, of engineering, of anything we do as engineers. It's just very simple. Think about it that way and keep it simple. Try to keep that idea and be conscious of that when you are thinking of the project management skills that you want to acquire or think of, or learn. And it's quite obvious, but without project management skills, you will be, less successful. You would be, finding it challenging to find more and better opportunities. And again, people complain sometimes about, the lack of opportunities, or, they're not like finding the right opportunities. They are getting rejected, etc., etc. And when you think about it, you start questioning, like, have they done, the right level of work? Have they portrayed it? Of course. Have they articulated it? Of course. And again, these are all related to project management skills. We talk about communication, we talk about engagement. So these are all skills that are very relevant. And again, simply put, better or learning, project management skills means that you are more successful and you get more opportunities, whether in the engineering field or outside of the engineering field. So let's dive into the first area. We cannot cover every skill today, of course, so I've chosen three of them. And the first one is planning. And let's just talk about the consequences of poor planning. So missed dates, missed deadlines. You just lose control over the timeline, and things can crumble very quickly and vastly. And you will become, or you can become, the center of attention for the wrong reasons, and you don't want that. You want to avoid that. So that's why planning is very, very important. You want to avoid budget overruns, you want to avoid missed dates or deadlines. You want to produce your best and required quality of work. Okay. You want to avoid rework or waste. You want to make sure the morale is high, because with poor planning, when things become, or when things go wrong, they become very tough sometimes, and it can be you know not good for the morale. And conflict, again, we got to be aware of conflict, and this is, it can happen obviously, but it can also happen subtly, and it can be damaging, for you as a candidate for a bigger role, maybe, but as well as for the project results, for your results as a team, for your organization. So planning is very important. And why is it overlooked so easily? So why do a lot of plans um, lose their importance? Well, again, we're all rushing to start. That's just our nature today. In today's age, we're all rushing to jump into action. And someone is clapping, which is good. They might have heard something they liked. That's good. But some of it is less experience. When you have less experience, you underestimate the complexity of the job, of the role, and you think you can deal with things later. And planning becomes a trivial matter, while it's one of the most important things you should be doing and focusing your time on. And of course, it's the modern, day and age culture and workplace cultures. And, so we need to kind of be conscious of that we are changing as humans, and our attention spans are, shortening dramatically and drastically. So we need to give enough attention for planning. Okay. And look, we're all inclined, or mostly inclined, to jump in and get things done and start on things, etc., rather than sitting down and doing, something boring, which, I know planning can be perceived as boring. I mean, I like it, but, a lot of people might think it's not the most engaging or attractive, activity to do. But I really enjoy planning. I love it. I mean, I sometimes tell people, if you want to get into, the energy industry, planning is one of the best ways to start. But I'm digressing. So, the benefits of proper planning is basically managing expectations from the start, becoming more realistic. So, it's all about managing expectations, and it's all about having or maintaining a realistic time frame. So, that's just something that, is crucial for your success. Even if you are, again, you're not a project manager, but you are responsible for an activity, or um, a part of the project. So again, realistic timelines, that's very important. If you're a good planner, it portrays you as being in control, your stuff, and that's a good foundation to build upon for your personal brand and for your reputation, that you are a strong team player and a person who delivers. And again, you know, proper planning can make you more flexible, more adaptable to change if you build it in, and you're better anticipating of these changes, and you're prepared to what could go wrong, and the scenarios of, okay, with the experience, you'd know where things could go wrong and try to anticipate for that and try to mitigate that. And planning is a good opportunity for you to um basically test, the aims that you're working to on a project and whether you align with the project objectives. So how do people plan for their activities? Well, to keep it very simple, there are many ways to do this, and my advice could be, research, do your own research, and I will drop, tell me if you comment, just to remind me, please put the word template in the comments. Template, template, so that I remember and send you. I've got a Notion template that I use that I've created that plans activities. So if you're interested in that and it's free, I can give you that for free. Just comment the word template in the comments, please. So my first part is to think of the scope and try to decompose it or break it down into smaller packages and elements of work, and we call that a work breakdown structure. So you need to think of a structure, and usually it's like a tree with branches. Okay, and every element of the work will entail more or smaller elements, so try to decompose into smaller bits, but be aware of the of the level of detail that you want to get into. So you cannot have 100% detailed plan, and sometimes it's progressive elaboration, so you need to take one iteration and then come back and update it or refine it or define it further, and that's called rolling wave method. So you take one wave at the thing and you break it down, and then you come back and etc etc. So you have multiple iterations at it, but also um, be aware that you don't want to be spending days planning for something that takes hours. Okay, don't do that. So establish your dependencies as well. So be aware of your activities and how they link or drive each other, and how they drive other activities outside of your control, and when does that need to happen. And more importantly, be upfront and very communicative about what you need as inputs and prerequisites for your activities to be carried out. So, what are the dependencies that will enable you to start on your work and complete your work? And be aware, of course, of these activities, dependencies, dates, timelines, and communicate about them and monitor the progress on them frequently. And when you are aware of your activities, you do that within the bigger project picture or the bigger project plan. So know the project baseline and know how you are progressing against it. That's very important, because you cannot act in a void. You need to understand the consequences or the impacts of your work on other activities. Because if you need to mitigate something, you have to understand, where you need to intervene to mitigate things. Could you buy some more time for yourself or for others? These are all aspects that make you a good planner, and everybody needs to plan. You cannot just rely on the planner for the project to give you the plan. That's not right, because you are the subject matter experts in what you do, and you need to be advising and influencing that plan in a way that serves the bigger aim of the project. And you need to review regularly. So establish or choose the right frequency. Understand when does the project plan gets updated and communicated, for instance. So usually it's updated monthly, for example, on construction projects. Okay. So, okay, fine. But then you need to find the right timing. So whether it's every week, whether it's once every couple of weeks. So these are all important aspects to take into consideration. And any changes needs to be updated in the right manner to the program and communicated about in the right way. So without that, it becomes unreliable, and you don't want to be perceived as unreliable. You want to be always associated with reliability, with trust. Okay, you need to be perceived as trustworthy. That's just how you progress in your career. all right? And be aware of deviations, either as inputs or as a result of other activities or actions, or your activities or actions. And again, you respect the plan, but you're also bold and brave enough to change it or alter it when it needs to be in the proper way. Okay. So we've done planning today. Let's go back to the questions. So we've done that. Okay. What are your go-to tools or platforms for design and engineering collaboration? So good question. So I like tools that allow us to collaborate on the layout, for instance. So, ACC, um, Revit. There is a lot of tools that allow engineers to collaborate when it comes to layout designs. When it comes to protection and control and things like that, again, it can be done, over different tools on the SharePoint or again on ACC. So you could share. I think ACC or Autodesk have done a great job with ACC. I think it's very, very reliable and I think it's very beneficial. So we are finding good or we're doing good work with collaboration on those tools with external parties as well. So whether they're suppliers or clients, etc., you could integrate more and more people on the platform. What are some project management softwares that you think are key in engineering space? Okay. So Microsoft Project is very important for planning. We talked about planning today. Primavera, P6 is important, of course. These are all planning software that you could learn. But again, I'll send you the template, and you could actually look at the Gantt charts. So I had an Excel, sheet which I used to create Gantt charts and create, plans for resources, etc. So there is not a specific tool. There are many tools, but you could use, any tool that you first of all feel that you can quickly learn, and second that is accessible and easy for you to pick up. Okay. So the one that you have access to, just focus on learning that. And there's going to be a lot of YouTube videos and tutorials out there. There's more than enough, educational resources. So that's about project management or planning. So did we answer this question? What are your go-to? Yeah, we did. Okay. Did I miss any other questions? No. Okay. Are there any other questions before we close for today? So today we covered planning, but I want you to basically research some real life project examples. And there are good videos on the PMI again website about how planning affected projects. What kind of different stories did project managers and other people working on projects experience when working on big projects and looking at the importance of planning or the problems they had with planning. So you can see those on the PMI, PMP, Prince2, APM, whatever. I mean, just keep on learning, stay curious, and it's the best way to grow and develop. Okay, so as we said earlier, career progress is a series of small actions that you take that accumulate over time and bring on good results. And if you enjoyed this session and want to learn more, please give me the thumbs up or comment in the comment section below this video so I can send you some further free resources to help you apply what we discussed today. And you can always come back and watch the recording, but my advice to you is to download the free Notion templates I'm going to send you and use them and try to actually put that into action. And the more you write about something and the more you think of it and the more you live it and breathe it, it becomes like a second nature to you and it helps you develop. That's the next level you want to get to. You want to be used to applying these techniques and tools. So again, comment the word interested or template below, and I'll send you the free download link. And as I said, project management skills, we're just recapping now, but project management skills are very important, whether you are considering a career in project management as an engineer or not. I think chances are you're going to be working as part of a project. These skills are very important. And we've discussed the common benefits and the obstacles and the problems we learned about, or when we face when we learn, or when we ignore them. Okay. And we said the challenges with applying those learnings, and how you could, plan effectively for your tasks. So thank you so much. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. People are telling me thanks in the comments. Thank you so much. Appreciated. And thank you for giving me your time. And I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. You can find the recording on Substack. So once I finish today, you'll find the recording on Substack, where I write weekly newsletter and share, an article every week, practical advice to grow your career as an engineer. I share videos like these. I also share any free resources or trainings I create, and I answer any questions I get. And, this is where I'll also announce my next projects or my next training courses. As I said, I'm working on a training course which I wanted to be different, completely different, and I want people to really benefit from it. So before we go, thank you again, but I need your help. Okay, so please comment below what you like me to talk about in the next live video, because I've got many ideas, but I want to know, what do you want me to talk about in the next video? And what subject would you like me to talk about next? So leave it in the comments, please. If you can write it in the comments now. I can see a lot of hearts. Thank you very much. That pleases me. And a lot of light bulbs. Great. So please keep your questions coming. And thank you again. And until we meet again.